Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm honored to have back on the show for a second time medical and child abuse survivor and whistleblower, survivor advocate, former disco girl, health and wellness extraordinaire, humanitarian, educator on mental, physical, and spiritual wellness, content creator and podcast host, Substack writer, incredible warrior, and my dear friend, Catherine Waters. From the ashes of a tormented childhood, Kat has risen, a warrior of resilience, her voice and action call piercing the veil of a broken world. In Kat's first episode we did together, she bared the raw wounds of a youth dismissed and gaslit, where cries for salvation were drowned in dysfunction. Today she returns unyielding to unravel the criminalization of mental and physical health, a blazing indictment of a system that brands our natural defiance as disorder, as we talked about on the last episode. With riveting tales from her own childhood and life on the last episode, and piercing insights that span the human experience, Kat revealed a truth as vital as breath, that health is not a luxury, but the foundation of our being. From birth to childhood to the peak of maturity, she laid bare how the neglect of mental, physical, and spiritual fitness seeds a legacy of pain, chaining generations to trauma's relentless cycle. Yet Kat wields more than revelation on this episode. Today, she offers redemption. Last time, exposing a chill and dissent, decades of government, big pharma, and academia sidelining vitality for profit, peddling pills over prevention, treating symptoms while the soul festers. Where on today's episode, she turns the tide, armed with decades of personal experience as a health, fitness, and wellness professional and whistleblower. With fierce clarity, Kat will unveil battle-tested wisdom, practical keys to reclaim mental, physical, and spiritual vigor and fitness. This is not just a mere lecture, it's a lifetime into a society adrift, a roadmap back to the wellness we've lost. As someone who spent 15 years in the field of fitness and holistic healing myself, I stand in awe of Kat's understanding and knowledge of this bigger picture. To break trauma's grip and forge a thriving future for our children, her message is non-negotiable, a seamless dance of liberation and strength. Kat is a titan among us, a relentless advocate for the medically betrayed and the childhood battle-scarred. Her voice roars with thunder, her spirit mends with grace, a radiant rebel in a landscape of spiritual decay. She dismantles the sick care empire with unapologetic fire, exposing its greed, how it drains our minds, bodies, and souls, commodifying our anguish for profit instead of healing our collective wounds with justice and love. Today, she beckons us to rise from the shadows, to wield fitness and healing as our prescription, and to seize back our power. This is more than just an episode, it's a soul awakening revolution. Join us today in this incredible and life-changing discussion and let Kat's bright light guide you back to the wholeness you have been longing for and the cycle breaking you were meant for. So you guys, let's dive in. Before I finish introducing today's guest, I'd like to share just a couple quick reminders and updates. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, sharing any information privately with me, or submitting a written testimony for my upcoming book series or to be featured on a Substack article, you can reach me at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com or standbysurvivors@protonmail.com. Additionally, I've teamed up with a couple of my favorite brands to offer you exclusive discount codes on products that I personally love, such as Rife Technology Frequency Machines and CZTL's Premium Methylene Blue. You can find all the relevant links, codes, and along with other resources in the show notes. Your support across all platforms is greatly appreciated, especially as I've had to shift to alternative streaming platforms such as Rumble and X following the termination of my former YouTube channel. I've recently just started a new YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to me there at the handle at Imagination Podcast Official that I will be rebuilding as well. This transition to multiple platforms is crucial to continue sharing vital information with the public and the disclosure community. Thank you all wholeheartedly for helping to make the imagination the safest space on the internet for survivor, whistleblower, advocate, and educator disclosures. Your support means the world to me and to us. So, you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guest of honor, voice for the voiceless, walking miracle, content creator, survivor, and anti-child abuse advocate, medical abuse whistleblower, and a woman on a mission to empower the world to get fit mentally, physically, and spiritually so we can stop abusive cycles in their tracks once and for all. The one, the only, Catherine Waters. Kat, it's so good to see you today. Thank you for coming back a second time to hang out.
Thank you so much, Emma. I mean, I have to admit that because I listen to a lot of the people that you interview. I've been, familiarizing myself for this last decade plus with this really more horrific child abuse, that I didn't really know existed apart from the child abuse within the family system that I studied literally for, and experienced, and the gaslighting and the just shutting you up and all that, which was, bad enough in and of itself. But, I feel sort of like, like, oh, what could I possibly have to share? Because it's not as deep and dark as what these other people, survivors that you interview, share about. But the fact that, right, like, just the I don't know what other word to use except regular regular society, and if child neglect, uh child, treating them like they have no rights, the normalization of just devaluing children, like, right in again in the regular world, is normalized, and people are acclimated to that. And so again, like, I've been trying to, get people to align with health, with nature, the laws of nature. And there's no greater way to know that you're aligning, with what's right and healthy, other than being aligned with the growth and development of children. Like, how, to me, it was the most obvious way to navigate through life, other than maybe like using the stars and stuff like that. And so,
I want to just say too, I think what you have to say is so important because trauma is relative to the person, and all trauma is traumatizing, no matter what level it is, whether it's as deep and as dark as something like satanic ritual abuse or some of this other organized abuse, or if it's, domestic violence in the home or having a drunk father who is mentally abusive. We all have to heal from whatever it is that we went through, and whatever we went through traumatized all of us, and we're constantly getting bombarded with even more trauma from the news, from everyday life, from going to work. There's so many abusive cycles and systems that exist all around us all the time. And as we talked about last time, we've come so far away, decades and decades and decades of being pulled away from that and into this treat the symptom, not the root cause society that we live in. And so the reason why what you have to say is so incredibly important is because it applies to 100% of people. SRA applies to a certain percentage of people. Pedophilia does. Domestic violence in the home. There's all these different sectors of abuse that apply to certain people, and it's crucial that we all take the time to learn it. 100% of the people should learn it, but not 100% of people have gone through that. We all, though, have to heal, and learning these tips it can be great for somebody who went through SRA, and it can also be good for the person who is just really stressed and, working two jobs, trying to keep up at home and stressed on and traumatized on a level of, internalizing that and having it, impact their life in a really traumatizing way. So we can't thank you enough for sharing all of this, because every single person can benefit from what you have to say. And you yourself have an incredible testimony of surviving so many different things that were put in your way to pull you down, so many different people in your life that tried to keep you from having that vitality and health that you somehow figured out anyways how to achieve, even though you didn't have examples in your life showing you how to do that. And you are just a role model and an absolute inspiration in every way. And 100% of people, like I said, can benefit from what you know. And it's really the foundation of our broken society, the degradation of health, of protecting children, of breaking generational trauma, and of keeping that spirituality, that mental well-being and physical well-being in check. If more people did that and took the advice that you've been screaming for decades and decades, we would live in a totally different society. We would have less of all these dysfunctions that you just talked about prior, child abuse and, obesity and different, different ailments in society that are affecting a lot of people. So what you have to say is so important, and it doesn't matter the level of trauma that you went through. That is all relative. It's all horrific. All child abuse is satanic and vile and disgusting, and you don't have to have a past of satanic ritual abuse and some of these other horrors that we hear about in order for your story and what you have to offer to be valid. You are just an incredible woman who has overcome so much, and you're helping people do the same, no matter what their level of trauma is. So I love you, and I'm so happy that you're here, and you're so valued and treasured, and so many people love you, and we've gotten so much good feedback from your last episode. So you keep going, girl.
Thank you so much, Emma. Again, I'm just not used to people speaking to me this way. But I wrote the word fight down on this piece of paper, that I have sitting here when something comes to me. So, what I try to really reiterate is, like, I always try to keep the focus on health and on the body, the mind body, and like, what kind of really helped, or that's what taught me really, was watching my body's responses to what was happening. And so, again, late 70s into the early 80s, as I got to be older and I could fight the abuser back and stand up to them and really give them back, and hold a mirror up, and all of the force, whatever energy that I was giving them back was their own, because your body literally just does. It responds by giving people exact equal and opposite force, and because the mind body does it intuitively. Like, it's not something, clearly no one's teaching it to you. They're actually trying to do the opposite, and pull, so, like, it was this constant watching how my body, mind body, psych, physical, immune system was responding. And so what I kind of like to focus on sometimes when I, uh, say things, is that, like, the fact that I, and maybe other people like me, had and was in a position where I could fight back, where I, verbally, I really did wish that I kind of fought back more physically. But unfortunately, that was minimal. I did um, restrain myself from, and I do feel like that really did mess up. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like, so what I like to kind of focus on. I mean, this war on health, especially psych, emotional, that I mean, everyone around was just participating in the destruction of our health mentally, physically, and spiritually by, and like the fact that I'm going back now like 55 years. I mean, I have a birthday, it's coming up in a couple of weeks. And so now that it's 2025, it literally is like 55 years since 1970, since the body starts to have these healthy adverse responses. Um, and uh, so it was so unbelievable through the decades, to see, we were speaking a bit before, you hit record about the world that we're living in today, about, the genocide that's going on. For literally 80 years, it's been going on. I have things queued up like I could refer to. I usually do that when I do a podcast. Like I'll have so many kind of things, like if I need this, I'll refer to. So just always connecting, like, the micro dysfunction and war against your health, the dismantling, the undermining of, I mean, like, and anybody who's just going to, attack children. And, I mean, the level of cowardice, like the level of, um, I call it altered mental status because it was, the early signs and symptoms of people going into shock when I was working with the New York City Fire Department in the 90s. And how that is literally a normal, like a literal normal state. Uh, like what I kind of want to stick to, that I was expressing before you hit record, I mentioned his name's David Berkowitz. They called him the son of Sam back in the 70s into the 80s, the 44 caliber killer. And I'm really familiar with it because one of the last people that he murdered, Stacy Moskowitz, it didn't happen that far from where I lived in Brooklyn. It mostly happened in areas of Queens, New York, and then one of them, I think maybe the Bronx too, was also others, but the one that I was the most familiar with was closest to where I lived. I'm like 12, 13 years old when this stuff is happening. But anyway, David Berkowitz is quoted as saying, the people will never believe you no matter how uh, well your facts are presented. And last summer, I read a book called The Ultimate Evil by journalist Maury Terry about the Son of Sam case. And before before I read this, there was a documentary called The Sons of Sam, showing that it was not just David Berkowitz who was doing all of these, so-called random killings. And in even the last victim, Stacy Moskowitz's mother, didn't think David Berkowitz physically was capable of killing and being in the spot to do the killing of her daughter. And it was Maury Terry in his book, The Ultimate Evil, that connected the Sons of Sam. This is all satanic cult stuff. Um, and I interviewed retired NYPD detective Jim Rothstein about this stuff too. He's the one that filled me in on the Untermeyer Park that's up in Yonkers, like it's like above the Bronx, where these places, these like inside of these like walled places inside of this park where they would sacrifice poor animals, mostly German shepherds, and they would do all kinds of sick stuff. But anyway, it was Maury Terry who connected the Sons of Sam here on the East Coast and Charles Manson stuff going on the West Coast. And in Maury Terry's book, The Ultimate Evil, he wrote about a murder that I never heard of before. Arliss Perry in this church, is it Stanford University? Like this church. And this was a really like clear ritual murder of this young girl. And so like Maury Terry, this poor guy, I feel so bad for him. If you watch The Sons of Sam, um, you get a sense of Maury Terry and the lengths that he went to to try to get through to, and God forbid I criticize NYPD, who, they got David Berkowitz. That's all they were interested in. They got their man case closed. They didn't want to know nothing from Adam. Uh, and so, yeah, like it just, like I just wanted to mention it because of the quote that David Berkowitz said to Maury Terry, "They will never believe you no matter how well your facts are presented." And I think about that quote often. um
Interesting.
in you know and this guy, as far as I know, he's still in prison. He's converted. He's got some website, found Jesus and all that usual stuff. But he did not kill as many people as he was made out to. I completely believe that. um but anyway, so maybe I'll switch now to my podcast that I do every Wednesday on revolution.radio Studio B. It's every Wednesday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. And what is truly uh the how the same issues just perpetuate all these decades. um like I said to you also before you hit record, like I did all of this fitness. It was just a normal response. Um, it wasn't confusing what I lived. It was as clear as the nose on your face. And it was just my body's response to go in the direction that it went on. Um, and and the answer, like, so this pandemic now of child abuse all through these decades, and again the severe, oh my God, like, Callie, I was listening to and I did listen to that interview before because she started saying certain things. I didn't think I heard it before, but as I listened more, I was like, yeah, I definitely heard this before. Um, and like this is just uh the level of this depravity that goes on, the just like the mental illness of, and this normalization, like this, it's just like so scary, like for me to be really hearing this kind of stuff, um and how just pervasive it is, and kind of going on like sort of the same time that I'm sort of going through things, and the Franklin scandal and all of that stuff. So the reason why, I wrote the word fight down is, again, it's just all about like being aligned with the body and health. And like, I can't even imagine people that are so under occupation, like a lot of these SRA survivors are, and how to possibly get themselves unoccupied, unoccupied, unindoctrinated, after having, um, literally, lived with people taking over their mind body, and living literally within them for so long. And like if you can ever get it out, like I have uh no idea, but why the average person should really be terrified of this stuff themselves is, even if they did not experience the level of SRA people like Callie and others have, that maybe at a more diluted level is the norm in regular society. And I can completely attest to that. And for people to have made it normal, to have not admitted that it was dysfunctional, admit that the family system was dysfunctional, um, admit that the so-called leaders are just completely fraudulent. Like, I was exposing people in authority for the complete frauds that they were. And I was just literally have been obsessed with alignment and fitness all my life because I'm like, I mean, a child just knows this stuff. Like, children know better than adults. Like, children are like literally healthier, smarter, fitter than the so-called grown-ups. And that is like, that should be really terrifying. And the fact that, the child knows better, and it's the polluted, contaminated, occupied adults who are polluting, trying to pollute, and completely drown the healthy youth, that again, it should just terrify people how inverted that is. Um,
That's a really
so
good point.
I
That's a
mean,
good way to put that.
it's like I don't know, like I'm trying not to get so
No,
right.
it's true though. Like even like we lose even like using our imagination. We encourage kids to do that and it brings them so much joy. It helps them see the world in a really, magical way. Then they go to school and it's like, stop, you're not a princess anymore. You can't be president of the United States. Like you got to shut that off, sit down, shut up, and like memorize all this stuff that I'm going to tell you. And it's really interesting that like we're letting and we're okay with like these very toxic values that adults have now that it is the adults that are raising the kids, right? Whether it's in school or at home. And it's like we're letting unhealthy people be the healthy example for a child to grow up with. Like it's very scary whenever you look at it that way.
I mean, how inverted, like literally in
Yes.
everything is.
Inverted.
And that's satanic, like Satanism, that's what it is. It's inverting everything. And when I just had let me just say this. I have so like I found this article. It was written by Chris Stevens. I believe I found it on like the People's Voice website or something. And it was called School of Fools, and it was about this guy who attended this really horrific, abusive, raping Aldenham school, an elite British school. Not exactly sure of the time frame though, but I think it might have been like a bit more recent than like the 70s. But anyway, like in this School of Fools article that he wrote all about this, like the teachers like raping the students and then getting like the older students to participate and abuse and rape like the younger students. And I was just like, oh my God. Like I literally saw this and I'm like, I have to read this on a podcast. And so I'm always like referring to abuse as pollution. I completely believe that abuse is a toxic, like almost like chemical pollutant that once it gets like people who are able to sort of not be completely overcome by it, by the fumes of it, and who are able to sort of maybe step outside of it after a time, because the guy who was writing the article was someone who was actually able to go on and have, like a successful life. And he talked about another student friend, an Indian guy who was so scarred. He was so abused, like, the art that he used to do, he stopped doing it. Um, but the reason I'm referring to this School of Fools by Chris Stevens is he wrote about, like that light, like it's like the adults are just always trying to, the so-called adults, the adult children, the polluted, genetically modified, I just call them, there's so many names like Monsanto, adults, like, we could call them DuPont adults, like I don't know. But anyway, like he would talk about, and this is what really was so, sadding, making me so sad in the 70s and 80s, was really this assault and like trying to put your light out. Like they really relentlessly were trying to douse your light, douse your just your authentic, healthy self, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I just had no idea how pervasive this problem was. And so, like I ravenously was doing anything I could when I was young to be healthier and fitter, because I really did believe the world was more healthy and fit. And I was so afraid of being left behind due to all this abuse. And I was just completely convinced people were healthier than me and grew up healthier than me and would be way ahead of me. And I did not want to be behind. So I just did like all of this, fitness and alignment and dotting the I's and crossing the T's and knowing that I had, the math and the science correct. And, but just now today, seeing where the world is, like it's troublesome to think and feel that I'm now like way ahead of other people. Like, uh, I mean, I took this stuff really seriously. I mean, the fact that, I mean, like what I lived was bad enough. I mean, it was just bad enough. It was bad. It was torture. And there was not one healthy adult there for you, advocating for you, being there for you, role modeling, just zero, zero. And you just have yourself. And if that is the norm, in regular society, then you can't even, like, that is what helps and enables the really depraved, severe evil. Callie was talking about, the underground tunnels in Disneyland, and the guy who, had the little girl in a tunnel and was just literally like sucking her blood while she was clearly like drugged, and then just like tossed her body like afterwards. You know, I really knew people needed to get in gear, step up to the plate for vulnerable people literally 5 decades ago. And, you know, to just now learn the amount of adult children. Oh yeah, now I just thought of something I really wanted to talk to you about, that you and Callie were talking about. Oh God, please don't let me lose it. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And this you guys were talking about, and I'm familiar with the adrenochrome and all of that stuff, and this sort of misplaced idea that these people have of like, like reaching some sort of higher levels of enlightenment, but through abuse and through the extracting of other people, of vampiring off of other people, and their really lost way of thinking that they are reaching themselves and maybe helping other people, reach like these heightened states of awareness or things like that, but by ways of abuse is just completely, I believe, completely, incorrect. And the only legitimate way to do anything is nature's way, is health's way, is aligning. This is why I did what I did. Just trying to do everything the legitimate way, like to find out for myself, because people would say, to me, like, oh, right, abuse is good for you. Like this, I mean, this crazy idea that people have of abusing, torturing someone to, to get them to some sort of a higher place when, and and this idea that adrenochrome, and they're trying to get, maintain like youth and all of this stuff by vampiring off of children, tortured children. And it's like, I can't, like, even though internally these people are just sick and twisted. And I mean, I'm not an expert on adrenochrome at all. And I mean, I imagine it works. And you had even asked Callie about the addiction, of course, like people getting addicted, and so this is completely like not doing things nature's way, like the legitimate way is all by going and doing things through nature's process, by aligning yourself with nature's process. And what really, again, just worries me is that it might not be possible. Like it just might be physically, mathematically not possible. Like that some people are just so in a state of deficiency. They're just in such a state of altered mental status. They're in such an impaired state, such a trying to think, like in such a deep level of shock. And in the video, that Whitney Webb is like warning people about AI. And like, just think about this. Like, I mean, I could play it like just for a few minutes. It's not a long video, it's like 16 minutes. But, like, she's giving this 2025 warning that has been existing long before AI, and people have been doing it, giving it's just like all about giving your power away, and people see. That's what I mean. Like this is what I was so aware of like decades ago, is because I was watching myself do it. And again, like I don't know what else to attribute it to other than that the fight, the years of fighting. But it also screwed me in so many ways, because all it did was bring on like more frustration and rage, because no matter how right I was, no matter how defending of myself I was correctly, like I was always just seen as, someone with like no leg to stand on. But as a teenager, getting stronger and can literally I literally could have killed the abuser. Um, so that was when the abuser did start backing down, and then they would start acting like the victim. And then, because now I was like, they literally pumped all of their stuff into me. I used to call it suicide by daughter. I definitely um believed that uh there is like this unfinished abuse trauma within people that is trying to like work itself out. I read like a lot of books on trauma over the decades, and they do people do try to recreate the scene, like the crime scene, to undo. And I know that that's what my mother was literally doing. um and and I do believe that they maybe do like even just like want to kill themselves, using their own uh kid to do it. I mean, I lifted weights to have something to push off of, to give me that solid thing, because there was no person to do it because everybody was just so unhealthy. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, when you really need something or someone, I mean, I hope like it should be a someone, but it's not a someone because most people are so unhealthy. Like that's what I mean. Like this is why I just gravitated towards, fitness, because it did act as the really clear, unstained feedback that I needed to help me keep my head on straight, which is so because if I think of Michael Jackson, right? Like he actually got screwed, because he has so much money, and this doctor again, like, see, people turn to all kinds of people that are supposed to uh right, be the role that they're supposed to be, whether, doctor, therapist, parent, whoever. And but then, because Michael Jackson's got all this money and the doctor isn't really who he portrays himself to be. He's like, there for the money. And so he fails in his ability to, be the person that Michael Jackson can, like right, like that's what people are doing. They're looking for people that they can align themselves with. This is why parenting is such an important role. And it really, like, it's just the fact that the parenting role is just so weak, without that solid thing, to push up against, to help people really navigate, to help people really get oriented in life. This is why people are just so disoriented, because they did not have a solid person giving them like true mirroring. Like so many people bow, they cave in, they this, they that, I mean, it happens all over the place. Columbia University is caving in, Switzerland is caving in to the demands and the pressure of Israel. And I'm going to say it. I don't care. They, I mean, at the rate things are going, they're going to come after you, because they're getting like so much overreach. It's just ridiculous. And, so for this level of like, deviation, like I mean, I never would have believed it would have been this bad, this level of people. That's what I mean, like without other people helping them to be oriented, giving them accurate mirroring back, in either in good or bad ways, mirroring people in good ways, giving them accurate mirroring back that they're doing good in life, that they, yeah, you got the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and giving people accurate mirroring when they're deviating in not so good ways. This is what I mean. Like, I believe the whole system, all the people on the earth are supposed to function like one giant anatomy, and like, I mean, I was always into anatomy and studying it and learning it, and you have agonists and antagonists. Like my wrist is only able to bend so much. My elbow only bends this way. It doesn't bend backwards. I mean, it's like that by design. It's got ligaments, muscles, everything in place to prevent things from going, moving in opposite directions than it's supposed to. And it was always my firm belief, literally decades ago, through fitness, and that all the people on the earth really are like cells interacting, like anatomy parts, organs, ligaments, tendons, and we're all supposed to kind of, if someone is deviating or overreaching, they're supposed to rely on other people to be like, hey, you're going in the wrong direction. You're, getting crazy and out of control. But the thing that's so sad is, people have been so um like conditioned by, like, this is what really just is very scary to me. How, like, people, like, they follow a man-made system and man-made conditioning rather than nature and health. Like, nature and health are over there screaming the answer, and yet people are like, no, like they diss and pulverize and beat clear God, not laws of nature and health that are screaming in their face, and they'll just keep in um inflicting the man-made over the clear God and nature made over and over and over again. And I read, it was Donald Trump, who I never ever refer to, but it was so incredible, this post that he made, because it was like I got punched in the stomach. How everything that I lived since the 70s is exactly the same. And here's the same thing, that the illegitimate people around me, the illegitimate, so-called authority, that was so obvious this person is fraudulent, because you know, people in authority are supposed to be the most proficient. They're supposed to be the most, like, athletic, is kind of how I think about it. You're supposed to, like, you're supposed to be the most masterful. When you go to a baseball game, you expect to see people able to hit home runs, able to catch baseballs. People don't go to baseball games to watch, like, the players suck and completely miss, and then go, oh yeah, that was great, they hit a home run. And yet that was like the world that I'm like living in since I'm a kid. And this is how I'm like, I'm following reality and the laws of physics all my life, while everyone else is like, oh yeah, the person in authority, they missed hitting the home run by miles, but, like, oh, poor them. Nobody taught them good. Let's just keep coddling and propping them up to be in a fraudulent role that they shouldn't even be in. And dare you say, like, you suck and you miss the ball and you can't freaking hit a ball or catch a ball to save your life. And so Donald Trump made this post, like, doing exactly that. Like, and I'm saying this because I'm paralleling what he said to how children have been getting abused. I mean, if children can get abused in life, if children, the most innocent and vulnerable, can be abused, can be framed as the bad guy, then it's no wonder we have Israel Palestine. And so Donald Trump made this post about this Columbia University student that they're trying to deport, who's here completely rightfully, because he's standing up, in support of, the people being genocided. And so they're trying to deport all the people that are on the side of right. Like, I was attacked for even being on my own side. Nobody was on my side in my entire life. And, so today you're not allowed to be on the side of the abused. He's trying to deport. And this one guy, sorry, I'm not going to even, say his name. I don't have it in front of me. It's like Mahmoud Khalil or something like that. But anyway, like there's more like to come of getting rid and calling the people on the side of right terrorists, and terrorist organizers. And like if there's one thing the deviants, the Satanists know how to do, boy, is call things other than what they are. Call things the exact opposite of what it is. And I know this so well because I literally lived it my whole life in being made out to be the bad guy, being made out to be the criminal. Like I was literally just framed as a criminal. I mean, that's, thank the Lord I never went into a physical prison, but you are in a mental, psychological prison. And I know I said this the last time, so I won't, kind of um, go there too much, but the fact that it's well, I'm living in a, a country today where the so-called complete fraudulent leader Donald Trump, this guy who is absolutely fraudulent. I like the fact that people and like people give their power away to it just they give their power away. So, so yeah, he's calling the student a terrorist and a Hamas, and even Hamas is the same thing. Like Hamas was created by Israel to be a diversion between the PLO and, sorry, again, I don't want to, misspeak, but this is like known facts. Um, between, sorry, again, I wasn't prepared to say this, so maybe I should just but they're created by Israel a long time ago to act as a wedge between the PLO and, sorry, I'm not going to say the because I forget. But anyway, so like we have been living my whole life in a, make the victims and the people rightfully defending themselves out to be the bad guys, and the real aggressors and abusers and terrorists out to be, and the victims. Because again, like people did this to me my whole life. Oh, your poor mother, your poor mother. And they literally make it be that way. Like they make it, physically like try to turn it into that. And it's just like an endless cycle of, the original transgression, the original trespass, the original, this is how I know Israel Palestine so well, because it is just so parallel to my life story and the story of, like, so many victims of child abuse. Like it's physically, mathematically impossible for children to be guilty, bad, um, any way, shape, or form, but like not even remotely. And yet, you know, so many parents, adult children, deficient people who are in, a mental deficit, adult children using their children to act out, the trauma and abuse, and it's just a endless functioning backwards of again how the direction that nature and health are supposed to go in, and try not to say, so much.
No,
But
I want to just add something real quick because
yeah,
I grew up with severe asthma that now looking back, I think was inflicted through having vaccinations. And I think it was a side effect. And my entire life, I couldn't do gym class. I couldn't play sports. I was told to sit down, do not get your heart rate up. When I went outside, I had to wear a mask whenever it was pollen season. I was on so many medications, like over a dozen medications.
Oh,
I had to leave class multiple times a day, all throughout all three, kindergarten all the way up to senior year. Go to the nurse and take my medications, right? Well, when I was like 17, 18, a little bit earlier than that too, but I started asking questions like, okay, at what point am I going to get better? Because I've been doing this since I was a tiny child and I'm still in the exact same place. Like, why do they keep telling me to do the same thing? I'm not getting better. And so I started going to the gym and it made me sick. I kept getting asthma attacks, but it would increase. I might get an asthma attack in 5 minutes in one day. Then I'd go back the next day and it was like 7 minutes. Then it was 8 minutes. Eventually, I got off all my medications. I got off everything and I was the best health that I had ever been in. I could finally work out. And I remember going to my doctor and he had me test my, I don't even know, maybe lung capacity. I forget what all the tests were that I had to do. And I tested like off the charts for this test. And he said, that's impossible. There's no way that this could happen. And I was like, actually, it's because I did the opposite of what you said and I got healthy. Like you kept me sick. And I think to myself almost every single day, if I wouldn't have done that, I'd still be on those medications. I still would have never worked out. I don't even know if I'd be alive right now if I would have kept if I would have kept doing that. But instead, it's like you said, there was something in me where I'm like, this isn't right. Like it's not working. And when like all this stuff that he's putting in my body, like it doesn't come from the earth. It's supposed to be like a temporary crutch to like help me get healthy, but I've been on it for so many years. Like, when am I going to get better? And it wasn't until I did the opposite of what he said, and like you said, went back to nature and went back to like what I knew as a child. Like, you run around, you play, you laugh, like you go outside, you get your heart rate up, like all those things that I had to stop doing because my doctor told me to. I went back to like that childlike mode and started playing and doing sports and getting my heart rate up and like having fun and like doing everything that my doctor told me not to. And that's what got me healthy. And like I still have never taken another medication for it since. I've never had asthma again, and it was only because like I went back to, like you said, what nature was calling me to do and what I knew in my heart was right to do because what he was telling me was not working. Nothing changed the whole time that I was doing his protocol. I was just as sick from the time I was little to the time that I decided to work out. And it's crazy to me that, like you said, people just listen to that over and over and over again. They're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm just going to keep going this hamster wheel that takes me nowhere from people who like aren't even healthy themselves. Like, I'm going to take advice from an unhealthy doctor who's just like running me in a hamster wheel. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I wanted to share that because as you're saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I relate to that so much. And like, you're so right. And I know from my own testimony of being abused in that way, and just being this person that they were just feeding tons of medicine to like get whatever that they were benefiting from it, but never benefiting me with it and like just keeping me in this cycle of like being sick year after year after year.
So evil. That is like so evil. And I just want you to know, like you described yoga practice to a T. Like, people have all kinds of misconceptions about things, but that's what yoga practice is. It's moving back into your body, occupying and gradually moving out the occupier. Like the doctor is trying to occupy you with his psychological stuff that he's saying to you about, oh, you're never going to be well, and then all the physical chemicals, and so that like that's what I mean. Like that's what the whole system is. And these poor SRA victims, they have it. Like that is the entire system, just at a really that's where it's the darkest, it's the sickest. But I've always looked at the whole, the entire system. Like a system is all connected. Like you can't have like a problem like in one part of your body that isn't being affected in other parts of your body. Like if there's a problem or an injury in one part, it affects the whole system. So if there's problems in the Middle East or whatever, it's the whole system is affected by all of this stuff. And so I hate when I don't want to like lose my train of thought. But so right, like listening to yourself and moving little by little, like yoga practice, irregardless of a person's, health condition, like whether you have a physical injury, psychological injury, it doesn't matter. This is why I just think it's like yoga is genius. It is genius. It'll help you get oriented because the body just doesn't ever lie. And it just is. It's about moving back in to your own physical and psychological, spiritual mind body and evicting, all the propaganda, all the misinformation, all the lies about ourselves that, people have had in there. And, through the breath, like, the breath, which is the present moment that breaks the vicious cycle between the past and the future. Like, that's, I mean, fitness literally, it was like a map for me because I couldn't stand, and I said this the last time, so I don't want to focus on it too much, but right, like it was so obvious all my life since the 70s people were perpetuating the endless cycle. Like, and it's so sad that we live in a world where, right, solutions are a crime, cures are a crime, um, health and fitness is a crime because they can't profit off of it. So they want to keep people sick. And even, things like therapy and stuff sometimes, um, people don't want, like I was always like, well, how do therapists, stay in business? Like they clearly don't want people to get well. Um, you know what I mean? Because I was always questioning this system like all my life. And so yeah, like I just wanted to make that point that, that you made and reiterate that you knew to push up against that discomfort, to challenge and be willing to go into the discomfort of, and then exactly like that's what you did. Like that is exactly what more people need to do. Like you have to be willing to go into the direction of discomfort, of a little bit of pain at a time, and breathe into it and breathe into it and breathe into it, and then you end up, pushing that out, and then you're the one who, rightfully so, occupies your own mind body. And there's just so many people that are like not willing to do it. Either they don't have that ability that you had to say, hey, wait a minute, like I'm not getting any better. um and so like that's what I'm saying. Like it's been way too normal. I mean,
Yes.
that's, go ahead.
No, yeah, no, you're just so right. Like so many people don't ever like get to that point. They just keep that cycle going. Like how many people do all of us know who are just on medications? And some people honestly do need medications. I'm not saying Western medicine is just 100% bad to throw it away. I know that there's some conditions that do require additional help, and that's why we have that. But that is leached into the general population. More people take, medications and are on things way longer than they should be than ever in history. People are reliant on this to function now. They don't know how to take control of their body and how to be fit without the use of these things. And many of the things people take medication for now can be treated with these healthy protocols, like what you're saying, to where they don't have to be on it. But for whatever reason, it's just strange. Like I meet so many people with type 2 diabetes, for example, which is 100% curable through health and wellness protocols. And they're on medication for the rest of their life for diabetes, just as somebody with type 1 is, who are born with diabetes. Type 2 is developed through unhealthy lifestyle, right? And so you see people that have a completely curable and controllable disease or dysfunction that they're dealing with, and they're just reliant on this hamster wheel without ever questioning it and saying, wait, why am I taking all these medications that don't make me feel good when I could literally just go work out, get my vitals to where they need to be, lower my stress and like do these very, very simple things. And I could literally be off the medication. I'd never have to take it again, right? Like diabetes, type 2 diabetes can go away. It's interesting how you just see people like fall victim to temporary things that they have complete control over and they have forgotten that they have agency over their body and control over their body. They've literally handed it to somebody who doesn't, either care or know that they can heal this person through other means. Like doctors are so trained to just pump pills. They're not trained to like talk about diet and fitness and lowering stress and all these things that we know are good for us. They're just like, here, take a pill for that. Oh, you have another side effect, take another pill for that. And so you see people with these completely like curable and controllable things that they're dealing with, and they're just relying on somebody, like you said, an abusive or traumatized or unhealthy, toxic adult that is basically passing that trauma on to them. It doesn't have to be like, genetic and familial generational trauma. Like we're also doing that to each other, peer to peer, like you said. Like we're not holding each other accountable and saying, "Hey, why have you been on that medicine for 5 years, Joe? Like, let's get you exercising and moving." Like doctors don't do that, right? They're just like in a cycle of continually abusing patients and like perpetuating whatever it is that the person is there to heal. It's sick care.
It's really dysfunctional, and
Yes.
I knew that I was like I didn't know it was going to be that bad though, but I knew when I started studying psych and I mean I knew I had to just because of what I was surrounded by. I mean just on like it was just incredible how ignorant people were to just basic mental health, basic emotional health. I mean, again, I just refer to it as the anatomy of the family system, just the anatomy of any relationship. Like where are the lines drawn? Where is the boundary line? And the normalization of trespassing and occupying people by so-called authority. And then, once that happens in the family system and it's way too pandemic, I mean, I can't believe not enough focus is put on the family system to this day. I am like blown away that there's like I don't hear anyone unless it's an SRA and they're saying like, yeah, my parents freaking, sold me, into sex trafficking. That's it. Like as far as like regular child abuse, like that I've been studying for decades, like I mean, it is really at the root of all of this stuff. And the people who you were saying about the type 2 diabetes, and so this is what I mean. Like you can't be physically healthy, and people do get physically more unhealthy if this is not healthy, because that's what I mean. It's just like the jab, just like all the people lining up for the jab. It's like they just like there's just something that they need to give their power over to someone else that helps it clearly comforts them, and it but it just goes to show you they wouldn't have that if they were brought up right, and had the again the nutrition from a family system where they were able to self-actualize. I would again, self-actualization, like look it up. It's a term by Abraham Maslow and the hierarchy of needs. We did the chakras, the last time. And this is like the 80s that I'm doing this stuff since really, really firmly believing that we would be halfway to enlightenment or three, quarters of the way to enlightenment by now. But it the undermining, the powers that be, keeping the masses childlike, and for the people it's like I mean, I don't know the whole country or world, so I don't want to really speak sort of too generally, but it seems just by um seeing where we are in at this time in our in history that there is like the ignorance to psychological health, again, healthy relationship skills, healthy boundaries is even more ignorant today than it was, in the 70s and the 80s. And um again, we did it the last time, the little diagram by from John Bradshaw's book of the little true self inside of the little kind of gingerbread man, and then the larger false self that most people, to varying degrees, maybe some people's true self is a little bit larger, their false self could be a little bit smaller, but it's been so normal for people to be indoctrinated and to be under occupation and to never, it go like the system goes so yeah, the system goes so against nature. I had no idea the war on our health was like, it really, really is and has been under attack. um and so the people, the SRA people who are literally being vampired, I mean, their whole selves, like spiritually, emotionally, physically, their blood like being vampired right out of them. This is not the way of health and nature. Nature, again, that cultivates, parenting. I didn't think this stuff was really that hard, to
Not.
like,
Yeah.
right, like, parents should be healthy people, cultivated by healthy people so that they're healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. So I mean, like to just, think that, like, wow, like, like I was really right in focusing on this stuff decades ago, because it's a no-brainer that, if parents are inverted and they're using their children for their own selfishness or for their own emotional deficiencies and to fill things within themselves, then clearly the larger government um is just that itself. And people knew, like, people admitted in the 70s, the government was corrupt. They didn't seem to take it very seriously or think that it was their duty or job to challenge it, that they had a right to challenge it, that it was literally their right. I mean, it's in the freaking Declaration of Independence that when your government, is deviating in any way, of its role as being by, for, and of the people, it's the people's duty to overthrow it, and everyone around me was just like, oh, you can't fight City Hall. And so it really is just this micro and macro scale, abusive and dysfunctional relationships, and then people just endlessly perpetuating the violation of boundaries and normalizing, leaving their mess and their cowardice and their pollution to their children. It's just absolutely criminal. And again, I want to keep talking about the SRA survivors, because um, uh, you know, what's going on in, the endless war. So what you said happened to you, and you realize, you're not getting better. Like, that's exactly right. And there's no ending wars. There's no ending conflicts. It's like never going to end these conflicts in these countries. And the people, because I'm so used to having to take the initiative and fight for myself because no one else was going to do it early on. So I was just so used to challenging authority. I challenged authority. I never, I said this the last time. I always put health and fitness. Like I was always, I wanted to be fitter. That's it. because of the crippling health issues that I felt physically and psychologically. So I just wanted to really move in the direction of just trying to be as strong as I could be, as best as I can by myself, with no help from anybody else. And so I was always resisting authority. And it really saddens me today to see grown people who just comply. They're worse of a child as an adult that I was in the 70s. I mean, and the 80s. It was just and people, maybe starting in Occupy Wall Street was when, people are just like finally starting to speak out. And but the level of resistance, the level of discomfort, it's like people are not willing to do it. Like that's what worries me. They're just not willing to do it. And I know for a fact that the laws of nature and health are absolutely non-negotiable. They hold a high standard, and the laws of nature are not going to bow. They are not forgiving. And if we do not live in alignment at the standard that the laws of nature and health and fitness function at, we're screwed, and it's all there is to it. It is not up for negotiation. It is not an option to function less than what the laws of nature demand. It's that simple. It is just that simple. And all of our problems stem from people just, setting the bar down here, saying ridiculous things like, oh, it's never too late, like I heard people say. And, oh, that abuser will get theirs, which they never do. And they just pick up momentum and speed and steam, being more psycho as time goes by. And, it's just, uh, it really is a fitness crisis. It is to me, that's really, it is, we have been in a health and fitness crisis, mentally, physically, and spiritually, like, before I got here, and it's only gotten worse. And, and I have to say that we have to look at the monetary system, because it really is the monetary system that keeps people kind of trapped. And like you did with your health, that's what people need to do, with money, is like stop allowing money to deviate them away from fitness. Just choose fitness mentally, physically, and spiritually, and getting stronger. I mean, I don't know how anyone can think that anything is better than being and healthy and fit mentally, physically, like, and spiritually. Like, for people to sell and be willing to kind of chip away at their own health, especially because people really, they don't even know what psychological health is. They don't know what healthy boundaries are. And that's why they give their power away. Giving your power away is an illusion of being in a healthy relationship. Giving your power away, people do it to create the illusion that they are, like in a relationship with another person, when it is anything but that. And being a healthy adult, it should not be radical. It shouldn't be a luxury to be just a healthy person, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Um, again, the people in the Signal group, for Palestine, that I am on, and I replied saying, like, we're the healthy adults. Like, they talk about, the settlers that are harassing and abusing, farmers, Palestinian farmers. And I mean, it's just incredible, the deficiency that people are in, the mental deficiency, I, again, you just going back to the Whitney Webb video that I was watching, her 2025 warning about AI making people more cognitively diminished than they already have been for the last 50 years. So like, the it's the level of impairment already that makes people give their power away. They need to do what you did and go in the other direction. That's what people like, right? Don't just blindly give your power away. Like, oh, like, see, like, there's nothing better than letting your body guide you. Like, see like, that's all my life. It was like no one was raising me, no one was helping me build myself, no one, and it was only because my body fought people back and stood up to and tried as much as I could to stop the bleeding, to stop the vampire. But I mean, I of course I still got energy bled out of me, and I still was in an impaired state, and I saw the impaired state that I was in because I was doing it too. Like, I was so starving, for love, for a family, for connection, for healthy, relationships with people, and, not having any idea how unhealthy and pervasive the dysfunction and the diminishment, the cognitive diminishment was even, 4 decades ago. Like, I was doing it too. I would project onto people, um, think that they were better than me, and then look to them to give back to me. And I would kind of catch myself in this pattern, and in the attempt to try it, because no one was giving, like no one would just give the rightful upbringing that you needed, the physical giving, the psychological attention, and everything that a child needs people to give to them was all I mean, maybe they gave to you really, really young, but at a certain point really early on it started going in the other direction, and you were being extracted from rather than given to. And yeah, I was just like, what in the hell is going on around here? This is and it just kept perpetuating. Like, I was constantly thinking that we lived in a halfway healthy society, and expected any healthy person would be able to recognize the basic healthy need that I was in, and then just help me, and they just didn't do it. No one did it. And I was like, holy shit, where in, like, and it just kept going on and on. I'll just say this again just quickly because I said it the last time. Even in my attempts to, I finished Brooklyn College with a bachelor's in psych. Thank God I finished that with no debt. But to go to graduate school, you would have had to get into debt. And that just raised all the red flags for me. I'm like, this whole system is dysfunctional and abusive. I knew that if this system was healthy, it's supposed to come in this direction. It was supposed to come in this direction when I was young, and people started flipping it around. And so if it's not out, if out here decades later it's still going in the same inverted direction, trying to get me to get into debt, for a degree in psych to study like the dysfunctional abusive family system, and I'm going to get into debt, for that. Like, that is just more of the same dysfunction and abuse that I'm trying to get away from. And yet so many people do it. Like, again, like, they give their power away. They blindly will get into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt for a like whatever degree, and be paying it off like for the rest of their lives. And the red flags like never go off in people that this is dysfunctional, this is abusive, this is an occupation and a trespass of your healthy boundaries, and it's completely against how nature and health function.
And you can
Period.
tell that what you're saying is true because, as an example, like for me, whenever I decided to get healthy, I was so happy that I made that decision, that I was seeing results, that I was getting off medications. And how did people in my life react? They would say, "Oh, you don't want to drink alcohol with us? You're weird. You don't want this pizza that we're gonna have? You're no fun." Not even acknowledging that the whole reason why like I'm healthy and like happy is because I chose to give up those things to be healthy and to get off my medications. And I was almost like experiencing abuse from people who were still participating in those things and who didn't honor my decisions as being good. They looked at my changes as being something bad. And with the whole college thing, you see that reflected on people who choose to not go to college. If you don't have a degree, you're not, esteemed. If you didn't funnel $100,000 into this system, then in society, for some reason, you look weird. Like if you just want to go outside the system and work, you're looked at as like a loser. I mean, that's starting to diminish a little bit. More people are starting to like be entrepreneurs and figure out ways to make a living without going to college. But just historically, if you don't have a college degree, if you're not throwing your money into the system and being a part of it, you're looked at as an outcast and people question you in a very negative way. It's not looked at like, go you, like you decided not to give your money to this system. You're finding another pathway that is, in alignment with you and it fits your budget and it's going to bring you wealth and success and happiness. Good job. Like that's freaking cool. Instead, people are like, wait, you're weird. Like, we don't want to hire you. Where's your college degree? Where is this? And it's interesting, like you really do see how conditioned people are to like just accept all these things as being normal because the rare people that step away from it get gaslit and questioned and abused. Like it's no different than a survivor who like leaves their abuse and then their family comes and attacks them and then society attacks them. Wait, where's your proof? Where's this? Where's that? Like it's that same type of like overlay that we have all this like very toxic and negative conditioning for.
Didn't now that you're saying this, and I think I meant to bring it up, like you and Callie talked about this, didn't you? Like, didn't
Oh, we might have, yeah.
because I was when she said that, and I was like, exactly. This is what I was like. Like I tried freaking getting people to do this stuff literally decades ago when she said, "Screw having letters after your name." I can't remember exactly how she said it. So if you can remember how she said it, but it was something like along the lines of like, um hiring someone that doesn't have like a degree or letter or something. Wouldn't she say something like that?
She might have. It's honestly like I've listened to bits and pieces of her interview, but it's been a couple years since I like really listened to the whole thing. So I don't remember that part specifically, but it sounds just like something she would say.
Yeah, it was towards the end of part one.
Okay.
And when I'm trying to think if it was, because like I make mental notes of like what time certain things are said. But yeah, she's like, right, because she was trying to, tell people, right, like, how do we get out of this stuff? And of course, as far as like money and oh, like, she hasn't had TV, internet, and what the other things that she right, and she goes and rides bikes and stuff like that. See, exactly, like, and then she did say something about like hiring like local people or and it definitely was something along the lines of like not having letters after their name because I was really always fighting that uh because like what I'm telling you, like all through my life, I was like, what the heck is going on? No matter what I did, um, like anytime I would try to make money, no matter how like much knowledge I accumulated, no matter how much I knew, whether I wanted to be a yoga instructor or therapist or something like that, the system would always find a way of flipping it around and making me pay. Like, so no matter how many yoga certification I had, you try to go New York City and to get a job as a yoga instructor in like the early 2000s, like 2004, 5, around there. Oh, oh, I had a yoga certification. No, you have to have this. You have to have this certification to teach, everybody always turned everything, so like this is why I really do point fingers at the people. No one was more determined to be about the cures than me. I was strictly 100% beyond the shadow of a doubt after what I went through. I am about solutions and cures. And not everybody else is. They literally use all of this stuff, that yoga, meditation, therapy, to just be about money. And while I mean, like, again, yoga, all this stuff is supposed to be cures. It's all supposed to be about, raising, and people get so focused on putting a dollar sign on something, and then all it does, and like it's not necessarily the dollar sign in and of itself, but if people are not maintaining the integrity, the nutritional value, and they're watering it down and they're diminishing it and they're like skipping over nature's process, which in this society it's almost guaranteed that you have to do in order to have the money. Like, more and more over the decades, because I mean, I just say it, like the fiat US dollar, I just consider it like satanic. It's a satanic note. It is a debt note. It is literally created out of debt. It's been deliberately weaponized. Once the Federal Reserve came to be in 1913, the Treasury is supposed to make our currency not a for-profit private Federal Reserve Bank, who it's all a scam. The fiat currency is the greatest scam in the world, and I think of it just like the jab. It's this, fake stuff that the psychos that be have injected into the system, decade after decade, literally, hundreds of years now, and it's getting more watered down, more diluted over time, so that it actually costs more of your health to acquire it. So your true value is being bled out for something that is getting more and more diluted and less value over time. And this is how I knew in literally the 80s, like, wait a minute, I'm over here trying to take care of my health. I'm like, I'm taking care of and building my health and fitness. I don't care what, because I was really, really suffering. And if this system has a problem with me taking care of my health, and all they want you to do is surrender it to just keep chasing money, something is completely awry here. And I knew that literally. And I just made it a point, like, I am not surrendering. I am going to go in the direction of endlessly building my health and fitness. And, like, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. And I mean, I'm just like, I've suffered financially all my life, but I really didn't care so much because my intention was to live a lean and trim life, like only really needing, like what I need, and but I know that, like, a lot of people, they really do get taken in by people that have money, and they it really is a good thing that people fall for, and if someone has money and they could be maybe a bit more successful, because they didn't have to. Like it's all about the health of the environment that you're born into and how much of your health and self-actualization do you have to surrender in order to have that initial roof over your head and clothes on your back? And how supported were you in being the healthy, self-actualized person that you are, by parents who say, yeah, it's okay, you can live under our roof. You can actually give us critical feedback. I mean, how many people are born that way? There's so many parents who literally beat their kids into submission and right, like, oh, just go out into the world and make money. And, it's just all about money and the truth and health being more in alignment. And they haven't been. And the gap has gotten much more wider and wider. And if people don't, say more and more and say no to being controlled by money and being more for, morality and health and fitness and human decency and healthy boundaries and protecting children, then and of course, nature and the environment, it's not really complicated to figure out. I mean, like, I'm worried that we've passed the point of no return already.
And when you're healthy as a person, like now, no doctor could ever tell me that they have agency over me. Where before, because I was not healthy, I wasn't knowledgeable, I didn't understand how that system worked. I handed over my control and let somebody else research, and tell me what to do based off, what they learned. And it put me into a constant state of sickness, where now, like, I could never let somebody do that to me again. Now that I know what I know because I took charge of my health and because I went through that journey, nobody could ever have that agency over me again. And I think it's the same with abuse on any level. I'm talking about medical abuse specifically, but that's the same thing with narcissists, psychopaths, abusers. They don't go after super healthy people who are aligned with themselves and who are very strong-willed and who are that, that pillar. They go after people that they perceive as being weak, uneducated, and unable to claim agency over themselves, somebody who will just give that to them because they don't know better. And so when we actually are healthy, we defend ourselves against that and we push that out. And so it has nowhere else to run. It has to go find another victim, right? But if everybody took that agency back, learned how to defend themselves against different abuses in their life and learned what abuse is and healed themselves from it and from giving up their own agency to it, like we wouldn't, like you said, like it would that would go away. It would start to disintegrate and fall apart because these abusers would have no prey anymore. They would be around strong people that don't fall for their bullshit anymore. And same thing with, disease and physical health and mental degradation, different ways medically that we're depending on doctors to help. Like we could go in and be our own advocates, and be able to speak on behalf of ourselves, do our own research and figure out for ourselves like the pathway that we need as a person instead of just relying on, these professionals and like you said, these people with letters after their name to like, wow us with all the knowledge that they learned in these schools that they went broke for that indoctrinated them, right? And so I think too, like there's that element of like, yes, it does make you like physically strong to go lift weights and you can defend yourself and you feel good about yourself. But there's also like this very mental and spiritual side effect that all of that has too, where you start to be able to defend yourself against these different elements, these other types of abuses, and these other types of control mechanisms that try to steal your agency from you. When you have that control over yourself and you realize that like you're the one in control of your body and you're the one that can make you healthy, you're the one that can make you sick, and it's all you, like you can do all of that to yourself. Like we can then defend ourselves against the people who think that they can do those things for us. The people that think that they can abuse us can't anymore, and so there's just like this really like There's so many reasons why what you're saying needs to be known by everybody and why every single person needs to do these things and take accountability for themselves and get on that path of getting away from that dysfunction in their life and coming back to that holistic care and, claiming your the control of your body back, claiming your agency back, and not letting the outside be able to tell you who you need to be and how you need to be it.
And one like important thing, like so even with your doctor, for instance, I mean, so if he was a genuine doctor who truly had your best interest in mind, like, so right, like any true like authority person who's knowledgeable about things that we might not be knowledgeable about, it is like their duty to educate you so that, again, like the doctor's job is to literally parent you, raise you, educate you, and so that it's an actual, like, partnership. And then of course, the cord gets cut and you fly out of the nest. And so and this is huge in finance. Like they did this stuff in finance, and oh, like some financial Wall Street person, the movie the Big Short is a good movie that shows a lot about this stuff, because I always knew Wall Street was like just it does exactly the same thing. It intentionally uses like language to make people feel stupid so that you give your power away to your financial advisor. And
Yeah.
I was always like, if people in these roles, because, and thank God, I swear to God, thank God I studied the family system and how just healthy relationships are supposed to function. And, never give your power over to anyone. If they're not, like, they should be educating you so that you do not need them anymore. If they're coming off like, oh, this is too complicated for you to understand and you're supposed to just blindly give your trust, that should be the greatest red flag in the world for you to like run in the complete opposite direction,
Yeah.
you know um so
You're so
like,
right. Yeah. And like, we don't, for whatever reason, like, even looking back, whenever I was a teenager, I'm like, why did I never like even ask a question? It was just so ingrained in me that like when your doctor tells you something, you just do it. If he gives you a prescription, you just take it. Like you don't question it. And like once I started questioning it, like you can't ever like go back to that mindset where like you just accept whatever somebody says as like being true, but it's strange to like look around the world and see so many people, whether it's from a politician, whether it's from a doctor, whether it's from whoever, whatever guru it is that, they're entrusting their livelihood to you and their agency to like not even have a single question about it and to just hand that over and say, whatever you tell me to do, I'm gonna do it. It's like we have truly like given up that part of ourselves that, can help be in alignment with that mental, physical, and emotional um and spiritual fitness that you talk about. And so it's just like it is really strange just to look at how far we've come from that. And I'm sure you've seen that evolution. I'm sure like way better than a lot of people, because even a lot of people in fitness like weren't paying attention how you were to this level. I'm sure you've also seen more and more and more people that like just don't even ask a question. They're just so robotic going along with everything, than what used to be decades and decades ago. People used to like grow their own food and like they'd had their own remedies at home to heal themselves and their kids. Like calling a doctor was like a luxury to have come over to your house. That wasn't something you just, entrusted people to do all the time. Where now it's like, people are going to the doctor, I mean, multiple times a year, if not way more than that, getting medicines adjusted. Their medicine cabinet is from somebody else, dictating what it is that they take. It's not home remedies anymore. And it's just really interesting, like how far we've gotten away from all of that. And, even food, we go to the grocery store, like very few people are like preparing their own food anymore. They're going to fast food chains and having all this shit food that's just compiling all of that, you know, that trauma and that dysfunction. It's just compiling it with all these nasty ingredients and chemicals that are like making us even less of ourselves. So it's just we've really gotten so far away from all of this, health and wellness, and it really is like the base foundation. Like if you are not healthy in all these different ways, it doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but like if you're not taking agency over your body, like somebody else wants to and will. Period.
And like you mentioned about asking questions and resisting, like resist. A
Yes. That's a good
it's
word.
it's okay to resist. It's okay. Like challenge is good. Yeah, I know it used to really bother me, a long time ago, this notion that the people in these really like prestigious like roles of so-called power or authority, they would get challenged and resisted the least. They would get coddled the most, the exact opposite of what they should get. And I'm always, I was always thinking of, again, like a fighter or a boxer or something. Imagine someone that's supposed to be like a really good boxer. And well, how do you know that they are deserving of this position that they hold if they don't have someone right? Like that's how you hold on, go Rocky, like, and he's yelling at Mickey, like that Mickey had him holding on to the belt like longer than he should have had it because he had him fighting like all these bums, and it's like exactly like, he wanted to know that he earned that belt and he held that position legitimately. So anybody in a freaking position, like they should, if they are who they say they are, they should welcome. It's like, come on, yeah, put your dukes up, challenge me. They're not gonna, if they can't handle the challenge, you just completely expose them for the fraud that they are. And the Donald Trump exposing himself. I mean, I like that's what like blows my mind that people do. Like even when people have been ragingly exposed as the fraud that they are, that they can't handle challenge. They're supposed to be aligned with fitness. They're supposed to be the most masterful, the most athletic and fit. And yet there's stupid Donald Trump calling reality the exact opposite of what it is, calling some person who's on the side of right, advocating for the people who are being pulverized off the face of the earth. And that person is, and Donald Trump, again, a complete fraud, a complete illegitimate person. I read Mary L. Trump's book, his niece's book. She's a psychologist, and she just cites throughout the book, how banks enabled Donald Trump, his father just funded. You see, this is why you got to be careful about money. Like people just fall for the looks. They fall for all of the external, superficial money can buy and fund a lot of things. And most of the time, it's not funding the truth. It's literally just propping up just fakery. And people get encouraged to do it as long as the public as long as the public's buying it and falling for it. People, it's like prostitutes and johns, like they just literally feed one another's behavior. And it makes me think of John Bradshaw said a long time ago in the 80s, about like a dysfunctional couple, like, oh, she bitches and nags because he won't talk, and he won't talk because she bitches and nags. And so they're just basically, fueling the very behavior in the other person that they don't want. But, in the case of the public, and again, this is coming to my mind now too. What's her name? Britney Spears and her conservatorship stuff and all that dysfunction. And, again, it's the public and the public's demand for, like these musicians and the dancing and the music that literally, fuels this stuff. It's like, because the bottom line is, it's like nature can't keep up with the demand. And the people kind of behind the scenes running things, they just want the money. So they don't care that nature or someone's health, an actor's health or a musical person's health can't keep up with the demand, they just want to make money. So they'll just literally, try to, squeeze every drop out of somebody, literally squeezing the drop at and of course the vulnerable children, the SRA children are the ones getting all of this stuff, like the worst of the worst of just, the, in the Ukraine, like, oh, again, the People's Voice have a video. And, I mean, I'm not, everybody has to question things and, use your own discernment. But I completely believe that they have like adrenochrome labs in the UK and this one woman that said she saw like, kids, uh, it's just horrible. I mean, if everyone was just healthy and fit. If everyone, I mean, I really was hoping and thinking people were doing this since the 80s, working on building their health and fitness. Because when I was spending time at the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies from 2001 until the beginning of 2004, and the amount of people that would come into these holistic retreat centers, I was like, again, like I had so much faith, like, yay, by now we should be so healthy, so like loving families and communities. And why are we not? And I'm telling you right now, it's because of money. People are so used to like the world responding to money, to this literal, it's like a placebo. Money is really a placebo in society. And people have been so used to other people and the world responding if they have money. People are so conditioned when money, it really doesn't have the nutritional value that and the wealth behind it, that it's only the idea, like just like if people say, someone says, oh yeah, here, take this pill, it's going to do this or that for you, but it's really a placebo. And because people believe that it's going to have the effect that it does, they believe that it has the effect that it does. And that is kind of what money is. It's just this completely, people have been so acclimated to using it in society and giving it all their power away to it, while their real currency has eroded for decades and decades. And so I'm always trying to tell people, like, exercise your inner currency, like, because there's so many times where emails and, oh, donate to people in Syria, donate to people in needy people in now it's like the Sudan. I think I even just saw something. And donating money and giving power away to money over giving and asking people to exercise their true currency and change, actually take action that's going to change the system. Like, you cannot just sit back, give power away to money, and think that it's gonna, like, money is the problem. Money being disconnected from your inner currency is the problem. Money backed by your inner currency and your guts and your courage and your resistance and your asking questions. That's a different story. But on too much of a mass scale, there's just that's not the case. It's people using money in replace of their guts and their courage, like, oh, I don't have to do anything. I have money. Like, I'll just give money. And that too makes people lazier. It makes people more unfit. It makes people weaker over time when they just sit back and it's like, oh, yeah, I'm just gonna, like that's why the people with the most money oftentimes are the most ill. They're the most depraved because they've gotten the world so conditioned to responding to their freaking, complete illusion, and nice dresses and suits and all this stuff. And um, I mean, maybe I should talk about so, I mean, it's just like I see these videos where people are kind of making like these points that I was making, like, I'm gonna be 60 freaking one in like a couple of weeks. And to just hear young people, like they're able to make videos. Like I couldn't make videos in the 70s, 80s, 90s. There was no YouTube, unfortunately. And so this guy make this video about mega churches, like the dark world of mega churches, I think it's called. And it's a good video. And like man, oh man, like stadium size, like mostly in Texas, I think he said, and all these faith healers and then the what did they call it? He called it, oh God, sorry, I think, like maybe it'll come to me. But these preachers who own like how many Lear jets and have a $700 million house here and blah, 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 blah. And and they're brainwashing. I can't believe, I was like, oh my God, they're brainwashing the public, like, yeah, like if you give us like $1,000, you will bring prosperity upon yourself and open up yourself. So again, it's this money, really money not backed by health is like, and it's really gotten worse. Like money is literally backed by such illness and depravity, and people just conning people, um the telling people to just give us money, and meanwhile, like these guys are like bit like millionaire, like maybe even trillionaires. And so again, it's like the people who are coming from a cognitively impaired, deficient mindset, they literally are like funding their own abuse. They're, because these people just tell them what they want to hear. The televangelists, they're not lifting the people up. It's the exact opposite. The people, like when I was a kid, like that's what people were doing to me, trying to get me to fund the abuser. If they're really for you, like they say they are, there's the one supposed to be giving to you for free or helping you or getting you money. If you're giving it to them, like that's backwards. It's just crazy.
Yes, sir. You're so right. And I think I said this last time, but I'm going to say it again just because it really does go with your point. Like, money isn't necessarily the root of all evil in a sense that just money is bad. Like, really, it's good. Like, it pays for our food. Unfortunately, that's a system that we live in, is that we fund things with money. Like, money replaced bartering. We used to trade goods with our neighbors. And, I wish it would go back to that, honestly. But once, commercialization of these things started happening, they started creating a different way to fund what you need. Gone were the days of bartering. Now you can go to the grocery store and you hand over paper, right? It's an energetic exchange for something. However, like you said, when it comes into the wrong hands, money makes people more of who they are. So if we're giving really good people who are healed, who are, fit on all these different levels, and they have agency over themselves, and they have integrity, and they're good people who want to make change for better in the world. Like, they're going to do something really good with money. Where if you're just giving money to all these, corrupt people who are controlled easily, who are obedient to bad people, who are not healthy inside and not healed, then likely they're going to use that money and do something that's not that, that's toxic, and so that's also important to remember that, we also have to be aware of like what we're funding, like what you were saying, we have to decide, okay, this is our system that we do have, like we aren't bartering right now, like we do have actual physical dollars and credit cards that like we buy stuff with. Like, what do we want to pay attention to? What do we want to pay that energetic exchange to? Do we want to maybe fund a survivor, for example, who like really, really needs it? Or do we want to just keep putting it in the politician's hand who's going to keep doing, corrupt things with it?
Me.
And so like there is like we have to like make those decisions. And unfortunately, it's like you said, most people don't value a person who doesn't have a big pocket of millions and billions of dollars. Like all the people on the world stage that like we give our respect to and that we keep giving money to are people who already have it. And then we look at the people who are depraved, who were screwed over by this system, who were not grown to be resourced in the same way that these billionaires were, who could do something really good with that money. And we just say, "Oh, you're just, a little person over here who doesn't matter. Like you don't have anything, so I'm not going to give you anything." And it's so weird how we're conditioned to do that. We're like, let's give the billionaire our money because they're having a fundraiser to like raise money for their political campaign. Like, let's give them our money, even though they can already fund it. And then you see all these people that are like homeless and suffering and like we're completely screwed over by the system. Survivors who have their jobs taken away and their livelihoods because they left their rich family to go get free and healed. And like we're
Yeah.
not giving our resources to those people who could like take that money and like turn it into something really beautiful that benefits the world.
Exactly. I'm glad, you brought that up because right, because that's something you and Jamie were talking about that. And I was so glad that you did, the idea of, people they always listen to like these kind of privileged or established people, the disconnection from nature and the helping of people that need it and giving to people that need it and doing like see that's what I mean like it literally will help people themselves. It will help you to do good for others, to help someone that needs it. It will help you to be stronger, giving and reinforcing and unconsciously giving power away to people that don't need it. Again, like I mean, like I don't understand how people do. They just unconsciously do it. Like it's an unconscious, automatic thing. That people just kind of keep funding and giving not just necessarily money, but just power or energy or recognition to people who are already so like financially and obese, really. Like I was using this term financial obesity, like morbid financial
I
obesity
love that.
decades ago. And I'm like, what the heck is going on in this world? I mean, it is so unhealthy. It is so, like, people like this is what really like, oh my God, in the freaking 80s and the 90s, and I'm watching people around me, everybody, people that I know, they want to work for these big corporations. They're helping the corporations become even larger. And I'm like, who's raising you? Who's helping you get somewhere? Who's lifting you up or giving to you so that you can be like and start maybe like a company or something. People just like work for whatever it is, Goldman Sachs or Lehman Brothers or uh I don't know, Lockheed Martin, and even in the work environment, the person stays at a very kind of, maybe they might move up a little bit, but they're never gonna get to a place. My thinking was always, always, always on health and fitness. and the family system. And I mean, is it any wonder the family system is completely inverted, completely backwards, where the parent is now extracting from the child when it's supposed to be the other way around? Because every time people go to work, that's exactly what's happening. Like they're being extracted from, they're helping the corporation get larger, they're enabling I mean, this is why Satanists are like running the world because they keep getting fed. Why are people feeding the people that are already so far overfed, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and extracting from the people they should be giving it to?
Thank you.
This makes no sense.
Amen. Amen, sister. That's exactly right. I love all these metaphors that you give. They're so helpful to like, you give such great examples of the micro of this, but you see even how like, there's a foundation and a root cause of something, and then there's all the symptoms. And because like we're not treating the root cause like on a personal level, on a very small scale level in our own home, you see how all of this trauma explodes on the macro all the way up to the top, and how like if we were to just fix the foundation ourselves, like we literally can change everything up top. We all think like we're just one person, I can't do anything. Yes, you can, and it starts in your home. It starts inside of you. Like fix the little things that you can around you. And if every single person were to do that, all the corruption that was above would just topple over. Like it would all be exposed and it would all fail to like even exist. Like, it's because we keep feeding it, like you said. Like we're not fixing ourselves to recognize like where abuse is and like where the trauma is like growing to on a macro, because we're not fixing it on that micro.
Right. Yeah, people are completely unconscious. And you just reminded me of another thing that Callie said, and she kept talking about the root. No one is getting to the root. She was saying that. And I was again, I was like, I was like really glad that she was saying it. I mean, like, just follow nature and like just follow nature and health. Align yourself as much as possible. At least move in the direction every day. Make it a point to just align with the laws of nature, with getting healthier and fitter, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Just move in that direction a little bit every day and not be more diverted by the man-made system, by the psychos, and take the time to just be go within and listen. That's Sebastian. He's like saying, "Where's my dinner?" I don't know if you could hear him.
I didn't
He's
hear.
he's howling at the top of the stairs, and he's this really cute like tuxedo cat, like Sylvester, and he's giving his soprano opera at the top of the
So
stairs.
cute. And so one thing too that I want to ask you, so you have decades of experience, not just, researching and, studying things on a bigger scale than even yourself or your own community. Like you've been researching world events and, the macrocosm of all these micros. What are some helpful things that you would suggest to people who are like, all right, like she's right, like I need to get healthy, I need to get fit, but it seems so overwhelming. I need to change so much, like everything, like I'm on all these pills, I haven't worked out in forever, like I'm eating chemicals, I'm stressed. Like, what are some things that people can do to just like get started on this journey, and like some tips that you would give for those different levels of fitness?
I mean, like I tell people to like meditate. Um, I mean, like I think it's like one of the simplest ways to start. Just being really mindful, like practice mindfulness, like the most simple, like people underestimate simple and basic, and it really is the most simple and basic things that people can do. Like to just like this table, you just touch it and feel it, and doing dishes and just really being present. um like exercising present moment awareness, slowing down. Like I see people just really not being present, uh, being just everything is like fast. Uh, the AI video everything is about delegating your power away to something. Like if like look at things coming to you. So, and then believe me, I know that this is not easy, but um, see, because especially children and especially like poor children, like they come into this world, they're supposed to get reinforcement. People are supposed to help them get more dense. And it's like the less leverage you have. See, that's what I mean. If people aren't giving you the leverage and then they're taking it and then you're losing the leverage. And if you're trying, by yourself, try like this is like, I'm trying to do this by myself. Like I'm trying to make myself more dense. I'm trying to think of ways to give myself more leverage and for things, to come in my direction and this, having to go out in order to get things to come back kind of, scam really that was happening over and over, like throughout the decades. And so, like you did, go in the opposite direction, of things that you think are going to give you, maybe the doctor is going to approve if I listen to him, and it's the taking of the medication, but also, oh, the doctor is going to like me or get some kind of approval or just something like that maybe, and then we don't even get that, like you don't even, you know what I mean, and it is not easy. I mean, I'm going to tell people, like, reach out to me. I mean, I'm on, everything can be seen on my One Great Work Network.com. That's where all the podcasts are listed and my email address is there. Again, I'm just going to be honest, like I've never really wanted to like start and make it sort of a profession around any of this stuff, because I was so committed. I didn't want, um like, my firm belief without a shadow of a doubt is we need to repair the parent-child relationship. That is the relationship that has been completely, like, pulverized. A healthy parent to child, healthy adults that are the flow of energy should, for the most part, be going in a one-way direction, and that health crisis has been so mangled, child development has been so mangled, and it's been so normalized, to be, the fact that the parent-child relationship has been so inverted, again, is the micro of the macro. Children are not supposed to be here propping up their and feeling sorry for their parent, because by doing that, the parent is literally like representative of the government. Like they're like the micro, they're the family system is inverted because the larger system is inverted, and it just needs to get turned around in the opposite direction. And so I was always trying to just keep, uh like, money really, like, away, because it was money that, contaminated and destroyed, and oh, everything has to have a dollar sign on it. Everything has to have a dollar sign on it. That completely desecrated the family system and the parent-child and the world-to-child relationship. So, I'm just, again, honest. Like this is how dedicated I've tried to be in, being for the cure. In that I thought that if I really, stuck to the truth and health and cures, that, I mean, of course, I have no objection. I mean, I was hoping people would donate if I didn't ask, like if I just did the work, like and people would recognize it, they would just kind of, be supportive. I just didn't want to ask for money for this stuff, because I mean, of course, like if I get money, I'm not going to contaminate this process. I would absolutely, use the money for good. I guess I just kind of suck at asking for um um and I just don't like giving power away to you know to money, but like again, like I would totally use it for absolute good. And but anyway, so yeah, like, send me an email. I mean, if anybody needs any kind of specific um work help, I mean, because everybody needs like somebody to be there, and just having people there, I mean, I think I could be like a good person to push, for people to push off of. But my my objective would of course be to help people to you have to be attached before you can then cut the cord and fly out of the nest. And I like again, that role has been so unfortunately polluted. I think we all really need to come together to be there for one another, to hold a space, to just listen. Sometimes just listening, doing absolutely nothing else, but kind of staying quiet and affirming things that other people feel. That again, like the natural process of what used to be, I believe people used to know how to do this for one another at some point. And people have lost the ability to just have healthy relationships skills, to respect other people's boundaries, to just active listen for someone, and to get the nutritional value. Like that's what I mean. It's the the family and community where people used to be able to get their sustenance, get their nutritional needs met. And because it's so desecrated, like that's what I mean. Like that's why now you have to go, oh, give money to some mega church, or pay. I mean, because even therapy, like nobody should be going to therapy. Nobody should be going to personal training. Even police officers, I used to say about cops back in the 90s, police, if they were legitimate, they would be like personal trainers. They would be making neighborhoods so healthy and fit, that maybe the need for policing wouldn't completely go away, but their role would change. If they were doing their job, they should be able to take a dilapidated, like maybe poor ghetto neighborhood, and transform it into a truly healthy, caring, supportive environment. And then maybe their role, wouldn't be what it was when the neighborhood was really bad, but now their role could be like in maintaining. I mean, I got fit pretty much. I mean, I was working out like a maniac, all through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, yoga practice like since 2004. And then you get to a point where of course you don't have to work out at the level that you did when you were really. I mean, I was never really like overweight or anything, but then you can just be in more of like a maintenance, sustaining homeostasis type of a role. And that could, what I thought, policing role could be after they get neighborhoods in shape. But no matter how many times police respond to neighborhoods, they never change, they never improve, they never get fitter over time. And I always had a real problem with that. And I knew that even policing, especially in New York and Brooklyn, was a complete fraud, and that they were not here to, to transform, to cure anything, but to just get a paycheck, basically, keeping and kicking the debt can down the road, and sucking the life out of the poor people in the community.
Amen, sister. It's so valuable, everything that you've talked about today. I mean, like, we really do have to get better as a society with taking control over ourselves, like in some way, shape, or form, like we're all giving away our agency to people who are not doing the same themselves. So, in the same way as like, you were saying children are being raised by people who are traumatized and not healthy. Like we're doing the same thing as adults to people that are in these different positions that we're trusting them to make us more healthy, and more fit in all these different ways. And like, we're feeding the pockets of people who just want to keep taking from us and take that energetic exchange as something that only benefits them, that never comes back to benefit us, and we just need to really become more cognizant of, all the different things that we're paying attention to, whether it's, mentally, physically, spiritually, those different ways, or if it's actually physically, our pockets and our money in our wallet, like what we're paying for, and just asking questions and like really getting to the root of everything instead of just accepting that these symptoms are something that we just have to deal with, like no, we can always treat the root cause. It's just we need to become aware of it instead of all this conditioned side effect that, we're trying to treat and like just running in a circle with, because you can't just treat a symptom without getting to the root, right? And so it's so valuable what you're saying, and I really appreciate it, Kat. And I wanted you to share. I just showed one great network
Sorry,
where,
one last thing, because I really want to just stress the psych health and fitness and self-actualizing. And I think it's that part of health where people are really kind of trapped and caught and not really understanding that they are supposed to be raised to self-actualize and the cord is supposed to get cut, and for the so-called authority or government or corporations, to keep people in that forever child like state, and so right, so not just being like physically ill or physically injured, but recognizing the psychological diminishment, the right, the cognitive impairment, and like admitting this is what nobody wanted to do. Not They didn't want to admit that they were an adult child. They didn't want to admit that they were like a developmentally arrested. They just didn't want to admit any of these things. Like they think they see, that's what I'm saying. Like they perpetuate their own problem because they're denying, and I mean, just decades ago I was looking at people, just uneducated, working class, and I was just like, how do you not look at yourself and think like wow, like I'm really not living, I'm really not that healthy, I'm really not that educated, I really want better for myself, and they would just basically live like everything was fine and they were fine and nothing is wrong. And I was just like, wow, like they didn't want to admit, like, like unless you're self-critical, unless you challenge even yourself, you're not going to grow. If people just want to walk around like, oh yeah, I'm so great, I got a job, because the system will easily help you, to make you, and to make you believe that as long as you got a job and you're paying your taxes, like that's what I'm saying. People will just shut off. They stop growing because they get rewarded. They get rewarded to stop growing. They get rewarded to be not well. They get rewarded through but it's changing though. I think it is kind of changing now, and people are kind of getting screwed by they're finding out now, I believe, what they thought and were kind of being rewarded all along, like to go along with the system and just have a job and just pay your taxes and pay your bills and stuff. But I kind of think that that's changing.
yes, 100%. And it's changing because people like you are continuing to speak out against it, and you've been doing this for decades and decades, sister. And I know that it's arduous. I know that it feels like people aren't listening, but the right people are listening, and more people are going to be gravitating towards this as they open up their eyes to how, how toxic our world is and to how susceptible that society has become to just accepting this as being normal. People will start to realize that none of this is normal and that we can take our control back. And they're going to need people like you to help guide them there, So I just commend you for all of your work, because it's been amazing that you're still going and you never gave up after all these years and after all these people gaslighting and, looking the other way and really deviating from what we know to be that true alignment and that, actual health that's not going to be found in any pill bottle or on the TV, So I want
All
you
right.
to share where else people can connect with you. I know I'll bring up again your sort of podcast host page. I know that your podcast is on multiple platforms, but onegreatnetwork.com is sort of the your main site where everything is, and there's lots of different creators on here, but I want you to also share where else people can connect with you and maybe talk about One Great Network and because it's more than just you on here. This is actually
Yeah, there's
one
a
great
lot.
work network.
Yeah, onegreatworknetwork.com. I do the revolution.radio every Wednesday, and then I upload the podcast to here.
Cool.
I've only been doing revolution.radio just I think October was 1 year. And this is like maybe going like 3, 4 years now. Um so yeah, like let's see, my ex is there. I don't spend a whole lot of time on I just call it Fed book. Like, and I'm not saying like I have like all the answers. I mean, but I've always believed in resisting and moving in the direction of being uncomfortable, which most people went completely away from, and that has really just it's destroyed society is people's avoidance of just legitimate discomfort, and not wanting to admit the reality, enabling, coddling, and propping up fraudulent people in authority for just so many decades, has just really made society and just very, very unhealthy. And people made themselves weak by avoiding discomfort.
Absolutely. And she's also One Great Work Network. Cat is on Rumble. That is her page. And then also on YouTube, she uploads a lot of her videos as well. And that is under Cat April Waters. And I'm going to have those all in the show notes too. And you guys, I know that we were just talking about donating and we were talking about ways to like give back and to just be more conscious. A great way to distribute, if you have some money that you are feeling on your heart that you want to give, going to somebody's website like Kat's, where she actually has like, she's not asking for it, but she has it there available. If you have $5 extra and you're debating whether to give it to a politician or to somebody else, give it to her. Like we have so many creators who like are actually doing good. This stuff is expensive, I know because I do it. Like there's fees that you pay for a lot of this stuff. Talking about these topics do not get you funded. You get kicked off of a lot of these platforms and have to be very careful with what you can post. And it makes it very, very difficult. Even if you get approved to monetize, there's really not a lot of this content that we can even put up that will be monetized. It's all censored and it's all looked at as something that goes against what these platforms stand for. So it's somewhat of a thankless job in that way. We devote a lot of time, a lot of our own money into this, and there's not a lot that comes back. And sometimes it's nice to have an extra $5, $10 here and there from somebody with a little note of appreciation. So if you guys are feeling giving or if you're looking for somewhere to spend your money, go to Kat's websites and give her that donation and tell her thank you for all this work that she's done for decades and decades, and listen to her content. If you can't donate financially, go share her content. That's another way that you're exchanging energy in the world and you're able to sort of take what you've learned and share it. That's a really great way to also to support creators. And that's free. That's something that we can all do so easily. Like Kat said, back in the day, she didn't have YouTube. Like there wasn't a way to like mass distribute this information. We're so blessed that like we can just go on Facebook, we can go on Instagram, we can go on Twitter and post a link and it goes to like endless people. Like that is so easy. And it's a really great way to help distribute all this information that gets censored by a lot of these big platforms. If we all come together too and support creators, support survivors, support whistleblowers, and share their content in mass and distribute this information together, like we can be a mainstream media of our own. We can also overcome that machine and become it, but use it for good. We can all distribute information that's true and that the world needs to know from the people who are being censored sharing it, but who are pouring their heart and soul into it like Kat is. So I really encourage you guys, one way or another, to go support her, whether that's just to go dive into her videos and to share them, whether that is to click her donate links, whether that's to subscribe to her. Every little bit really helps us push this needle forward. And it's so wonderful to help give anything that we can to people who are putting in all this work and all of this devotion to help sharing these truths that are often met with a lot of criticism, a lot of backlash, a lot of gaslighting, a lot of censorship. A little bit of support goes a long way. So I'm going to have all of her stuff in the show notes. And I really encourage you guys, if you haven't followed her yet, to do it. I'm also going to link her last episode too. There was so much goodness in that last episode that we did. So I'm going to have that below, and I encourage you guys to go listen to that if you missed it. And if you guys heard it, I know that you guys got a lot out of that. And so, Kat, was there anything else that you wanted to share today before we wrap up?
I mean, just like, I guess to just kind of reiterate, right? Like to, give attention and support and invest in people who need it, people that, because like what I just worry so much about over the decades, I think about all those children who never had a chance, like all the creativity we never got, all the people, who should have been self-actualizing and giving the world all of their gifts and talents that we will never ever see because everyone is so busy, keep unconsciously propping up and feeding the abusers, rather than giving and it right. It's so I just want to reiterate that it is, going back to the so, somewhat makeshift parent child or just, vulnerable people who never had a chance. Like they're really the people that we need to cultivate, people that were never cultivated in order to see what gifts and talents they could have been offering that could have countered the level of traction and overreach that the psychos have. Like that's how nature and health functions. The all the young people that that have been getting abused and polluted by the people in the middle helping the psychos. Like when they they would have been the filter. They would have been, I say children were supposed to be society's immune system, and by not defending children, the social immune system was dismantled and the cancer Satanists were allowed to take over.
Amen. Yes, you're so right, Kat. And again, just thank you. Like so many of these things like resonate so deeply with me, and you put it in such like a simplistic way to understand. I really appreciate you helping us sort
Thank
of be
you.
guided again to these truths that have gotten buried for so long, and for helping simplify it for us because it can seem really daunting. And a lot of people I know feel helpless. They know they're unhealthy and they think, oh, I'm just one person. I can't do anything. And they don't realize like how much they can do just with themselves, just with investing into themselves, and healing and becoming fit on all those different levels that you have been preaching for so long. So
Yep.
it's really a great honor to have you on again, and I can't wait to have you back on. There's so much that we have to learn from you, and every episode that you ever do is just packed full of information that we can just listen to over and over and over and over and over again. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do. And
Thank
thank you
you.
everybody for listening and for, being here and investing in us right now. I'm going to have all Kat's links in the show notes. Like I said, I'll have all my links as well. Please reach out. Kat has her email on onegreatworknetwork.com on her site, which is going to be below. So reach out to her via email to DM her on Twitter if you guys are on there, if you guys want to get in touch with her. And just thank you guys so much for listening. God bless you. And we will see you next time.